Good morning, members, officers and members of the public. My name is John Kaiser, Clerk to the Board. The public element of today's meeting is being recorded in line with City Corporation's policies, and the recording shall be retained for up to 1 year. Chairman.
Thank you. First of all, Gabby, I'd like to welcome you to the Markets Board. It's a little bit like discussing one's ward. This is without doubt the most enjoyable committee to sit on. So I'm thrilled you're here. And I hope you have as much fun as I've had being on the Markets Board. Welcome.
Thank you for your warm welcome, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Turning to item 1, formal apologies for today. I've received notice from James Tunbridge, Jason Pritchard, Igat Qureshi, Oliver Sells, Mark Wheatley and Marianne Fredericks. In addition, I believe Jason Pritchard's joined us today on Teams.
And Jason, you're here, but you're still an apology. I discovered this at our last meeting when Nigat was online, just so that we're grateful that you're actually here, but we are quorum, which is the important thing.
Chairman, item 2, member declarations under the Code of Conduct in respect of items on the agenda. Mr. Lawrence, we have your regular declaration for these meetings. Thank you. Chair, seeing no additional declarations for today, we turn to item 3, the public minutes of our last meeting on the 6th of November 2025.
Am I right that you've had a message from Jason?
I have, Chairman. Yes,
Read
bear with me a second. Chairman, yes, there was one correction from Mr. Pritchard on page 8 of your minutes in the pack with reference to Community Energy London. This is actually inaccurate. My apologies. The organisation was Repowering London. We will correct the public minutes after the meeting today.
That's very helpful. I believe they're a correct record. Has anyone got any concerns about the minutes? And I think everything in the minutes is picked up during our meeting. Unless anyone has any questions about that they want to raise about matters arising. Happy?
Chairman, there is one additional item, Steve Chandler's request for delegation, which was picked up last meeting.
Right. So, Steve, do you want to explain why you want that reconfirmed?
Whilst negotiations are proceeding on the Spitalfields lease renewals, not as quickly as everyone would like. There was a bit of a delay between Christmas and now. There was meant to be, I've just discovered this morning, there was meant to be a meeting on Monday and a further one for Friday. The Monday meeting was cancelled because our agent came down with a medical emergency and is only back in the office as of today. He hopes to attend the meeting on Friday and have a further meeting early next week. What I've asked is that if that doesn't lead to a deal that can be recommended to yourselves, that we have a call to bank position recommended to ourselves. A call to bank, I think everyone knows, is an offer that we can make under the legal proceedings to say, this is the best offer we're prepared to make. If the matter proceeds to court and the court awards something more favourable than that, costs would be awarded against the other side. So it's a very serious offer to say that we're drawing a line in the sand. I've asked that we have that reported to us by the end of next week, so I can then report it and seek delegated authority to have it approved by the town clerk in consultation with yourself, because obviously any call to bank offer has to be capable of acceptance. So the tenants can say, actually, that's your best position, we'll take it, but we don't know how they're going to behave. We do know that the Tenants Association have tried to break out of the negotiating space and have come to members to say that they're not happy with progress. I do have to say that has happened rather a lot when we've negotiated with them, and I do understand that they want to flag up to members that they feel they're being pushed too far and the rents we're trying to achieve are too high. What I would say is that the rents we're trying to achieve are just the reasonable rents in the current market, and it's it's a city fund asset. We've got a fiduciary duty to the city fund, and we have to get the right result, and that's what I want to report to this committee.
That's very helpful, and if members are happy to allow us delegated authority, that would be very useful. Just to be very clear, we have to serve that letter on every single tenant. I think it's quite important that members know that.
Yes, Chairman. So once we've got the figure, there will be a week or so's hiatus while we get the mail merge correct. It'll have to be checked because, as I say, it's capable of acceptance. We don't want to go offering the wrong figure to the wrong tenant. So yeah, but it'll go out within about a week or so.
You, Wendy?
Yes, item 8 on page 9. Jim.
Are you happy with the delegated authority first? Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Steve, just can you clear on what timetable the tenants will have to respond? Make sure we give them plenty of time at all.
Sorry, Steve, could you turn your microphone on? Just apologies.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Thank you, Chairman. Are we, we're only dealing with the association, aren't we? No individuals, just the
At
association.
the moment, they're all together in one group, but I mean, as always, they could break ranks. They haven't yet.
Also, they've been very joined up. I mean, Chris isn't here, but I mean, they have been working very much through the association. I think Emma, you confirmed that, but it's very clear. But I'm very happy if we move on this. Wendy, you had a question. Yeah, no.
Sorry, only if you finished on that item. It's really about the Christmas auction, which went ahead, and I understand that was the best ever. And approximately, I've written it down here, 2,500 to 3,000 people attended. And I just, and I believe it was on YouTube, so hopefully it'll get better and better every year.
You can get the autograph of one of the stars who's actually sitting quite close to you. I'm not sure if it'll get a BAFTA, but it is going to be picked up actually in the reports on the markets because there is a plan going forward, which I know the director wants to outline. Is that fair?
Well, it would be very helpful if we could set it in stone, Chair.
Yeah.
Just on that, if I can thank all the corporation staff on behalf of Smithfield on the help they gave the build up to the auction and on auction today. It was invaluable, and many thanks to all the staff of the corporation, the help to get it done, because we had a few hurdles on the way, by the way, but all the corporation was fabulous.
Actually, Ben, do you want to outline, as we're talking about it, rather than bring it back? It would be better to have it here.
Yeah, I think so. There was a lot of lessons learned. I think it was really successful. It was very, very well attended. And I think that from our side of things, it was great to see that people want to come, people want to spend money. And it's not just about the good deal. That's a big part of it. It's the theatre of it. It's a spectacle. It's a real event. Reflecting from our side of things, I think that there was possibly too many cooks spoiling the broth in terms of expert opinion.
In the run up.
In the run up, I think we definitely had. There must have been 30 people on some of the special advisory group meetings. What we need to look at internally is the control of that situation and where the safety advisory group, the governance sits. I think it would be better served if it was a gold, silver and bronze commanded event within markets. And in the past, we've looked to have responsibility resting solely on the shoulders of the tenants. I think a shared responsibility is the best way to go forward. And with that shared responsibility, I think we would be better served holding that responsibility properly in a gold, silver and bronze fashion. I think there was lessons to be learned in the way that it was set up. The stage could have been bigger. The access at the front of the stage for the forklift trucks could have been better. And the Harris fencing, in my opinion, didn't work very well, as opposed to a more open, smaller safety barrier that our security could allow ingress and egress from. I felt that the Harris fencing sort of almost kettled people towards the stage rather than allowing access through. It just became a route of access for people that weren't coming to the auction, which wasn't really our focus on the day. But yeah, I think it was really successful. Thanks again to the staff that were working their day off, essentially, because it was Christmas Eve. But yeah, and to Greg Lawrence Meats and the SMTA for their support throughout. It went really well.
I mean, I think what's fantastic, Greg, I think if I'm wrong, that it gets better and better and bigger. So if we can do this, I got the slight feeling in the run up that there was quite a lot of silo thought, which if we do what you're proposing, will be eradicated in that we'll have sort of one vision, as it were.
Well, I think, Jim, what we were looking for was a sort of reasonable and practicable approach to risk. Decision making. I think that sometimes there was a technical standoff or maybe even a one-upmanship in experts, which is always the case when you get many experts in the room. And I think to counteract that, better governance would be the thing. But yeah, there's plenty of things we could have done better. The main one being we would have done things a lot sooner.
Well, so if everyone agrees, I think the key is that we'd like to go forward with this plan, but we'd also like to make the request to Destination City earlier for funding, because that was extremely helpful.
Absolutely, and Destination City really supported us. I know the board had underwritten the costs. There was a risk that those costs wouldn't be recoverable, and then that sits on my local risk. The risk paid off, and we did get the funding. Lots of lessons learned in our application of that. I think when we first started this, Greg Lawrence Meats were very much at the forefront of this, but we were not able to access the same level of funding from either the corporation doing it themselves or from a limited company themselves. So the cooperative of the SMTA opened a lot of doors for us. So there was lots of lessons learned in that respect, and even paying invoices proactively and then not being able to retrospectively have them paid was a lesson as well. So I think we'll be far better off next year.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. Wendy.
Just like to add that I understand that all the small businesses around, all the cafes and pubs, were very thrilled to have such a big turnout of people.
It's fantastic. I just wanted to welcome Chris Hutchinson, who's just joined online. Anything else on markets, on the auction that anyone wants to raise? Well, I think we have a very clear plan to go forward, and obviously the timetable and doing it earlier is obviously fundamental. Dan, do you want to do your public report?
Of course, thank you, Chairman. Nothing particularly further to add. Safe to say that when I put the report together, the issue with the road closures or the traffic management orders was sort of in the air. We've had some more meetings with colleagues from the city and from the museum, and I understand that we have worked towards a resolution for the traffic management order in East Poultry Avenue, and at some point in the near future we'll be discussing the longer traffic management order in place for West Smithfield. Nothing further to add unless members have got questions. Thank you.
Greg, do you want to comment on the traffic, or you're right? Okay. Brilliant. Cheers.
So I haven't got anything to add further to what is in the report, but I have got an update to share with the board on water leaks, which has been an ongoing situation at Billingsgate. So we've had a number of water leaks on the site since about 2022, but in the last year we had two, and one was repaired in June and one in September. And so that's probably a natural consequence of the fact that the site is at end of life. Current position is that we've actually spent 498,249 on water, but we're not able to recharge all of it back. So 300,000 circa is attributable to the leak which happened. So the water billing was put on hold for the leak periods. After the last repair, the water did go back to normal levels, but that was just for a month. And it's now significantly increased. So that led us to suspect that we had another leak on site. But a leak detection report was commissioned, and in December it came back to say that there in fact wasn't a leak that they were able to find on site. So there were no continual flow alarms also against the account. So we're using probably about 5 times the amount of water we would have used back in Q2 2024, when water was at a relatively normal level before we had the leaks in the first place. And last month we were charged £48,000 for water. So we're managing the situation by carrying out all the recommendations in the report that's come from Thames Water, and that's kind of constantly running urinals, some leaking pipe work and some high priority actions. We've also requested that the meters inspected and calibrated and replaced if necessary, because potentially it could be incorrect. We've worked with the energy team, we've sourced card and coin meters to control tenant water use, which should be installed. And that's ensuring that we're charging for anything that's being used operationally. We've set cleaning targets with Mighty to reduce water. They'll be using a fire hose significantly more often previously, and now it's been reduced right down. So we're taking daily water meetings as well, so we can kind of assess the situation and really make sure that we understand the amount of water that we're consuming. Have made inquiries with the insurance team, but they have said that it isn't something we're going to be insured against, and we can't make a claim against insurance. So currently we are exploring whether we're eligible for a rebate from Thames Water as water supplier, because the water was discharged directly to the sewer. So that could reflect the charge for wastewater, because essentially we didn't use that. So any questions from the board?
Because I have no idea of what it would be. What would our normal monthly cost of water be at the market?
So £48,000 is 5 times as much a month as it would have been back when we are looking at kind of across patterns. I think we went back to 2024. That's a state we were using a normal amount of water. So it's 5 times as much as being used.
And it is an extraordinary amount of money, Gabby.
We have our own water treatment plant at the farm, and the water bills are 10% of what you would expect a normal residents to pay. Also, when you're taking the readings, are you correlating the difference at the weekends when the market isn't trading to get some sort of...
Yeah, appreciate what you're saying, because of course that might indicate that there was a leak if we're using the same amount of water at the weekends. So at the moment we're taking daily water meetings so we can actually try to identify patterns, but it isn't running continually. So the use at the weekends does reduce somewhat, although it's still higher than would be expected.
Thank you.
You mentioned the use of the fire hose. I was just a bit confused. Can you just explain for me?
Apologies. Fire hose is used to clean the outside of the market, and we've got areas that get incredibly slippery, so it's used just to facilitate cleaning, but we have reduced that right back. I think it's used once a week to clean the market. I think it was used much more often previously.
Is part of the issue the fact that we were underpaying for many years, and now we're paying the proper amount? I mean, it's just looking at it the other way around, really, that maybe it's not that there's a problem now, but actually the problem was maybe a calibration problem before. I mean, I wouldn't want to think that, because that means we're paying a lot more for the water. I think we should be able to get to the bottom of how much a site like this, albeit totally unique and etc., should be consuming, and so we should be able to get a handle on it. But were we not paying enough before?
It's a hypothesis we're working to, but I can do some benchmarking to see whether that might be the case.
How can we help with Thames Water? Because I'm obviously very aware that they're hardly the most successful utility company at the moment. And trying to get money out of somebody who's not terribly successful is a slight worry. But we obviously have a relationship with them, given the amount of work they've done through the city recently, and whether there's any help that we can have from either within the senior leadership here or this board, or whether there are avenues that can be helpful to getting some of this money back, because it's a chunk of money. I don't know. I mean, do you have a relationship at Smithfield with Thames Water? You don't use very much water, do you?
Thames Water have not cropped up in my in my path, so I don't think it's a big issue. Water at Smithfield.
No, I just think that if we can find it.
Just to note, Chairman, that one of the reasons we're closing, or the daytime closure of East Poultry Avenue is a Thames Water link and Gulf Fine, so it's everywhere.
That's okay. Well, if we do have any wonderful connections to Thames Water, it'd be quite helpful to let the team know, please. Any other questions on Billingsgate? Emma? Or anything to add on New Spits? Any questions for Emma on New Spits? Perfect. Yes, I was just going to mention City Harvest. Do you want to recap where they are? Because I spoke to I spoke to the deputy chairman last night, so I can.
So just leave that bit
from,
here.
yeah,
I've got my question for non-public.
Okay, let's do it non-public.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Turning to item 5, members, the Markets Division Business Plan Update Report of the City Surveyor. For information, page 15.
Any questions on this? The only question I had was about the school and the lease, because I was worried Mr. Tunbridge would have been here. Do you want to just update for the minutes so that Mr. Tunbridge gets the benefit of seeing them in the minutes?
Yeah, so as you know, your committee at the last meeting approved the terms of the food school. I had to, after we spoke yesterday, I had to check where we got to. So actually, I was waiting on the BITIA resolution before instructing lawyers. So I had received that in January. So lawyers are now instructed, but there's been a bit of a hiatus as I put it to one side. So a draft lease will go out in the next week or so, but terms were agreed pre-November.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay.
Thank you. Item 6, the draft high-level business plan 26 through 31, City Surveyors Department. Report of City Surveyor for decision, page 27.
Ben, do you want to?
Happy to take any questions on this, Chairman. It's obviously a city surveyor business plan there, and the scope here obviously is the markets part of that. I think it's perfectly easy to navigate. I would say a lot of this work has been done by Jane Poulton, who works in our team, and this is one of the best business plans that we've seen for a long time. I think it's really good, really clear, easy to digest, has excellent key achievements in there noted. I think you'll enjoy it.
Will you pass on our thanks to Jane anyway?
Certainly will.
Anything that anyone wants to raise on this?
Chairman, thank you. Item 7, the City Surveyor's Wholesale Market Risk Update Report, Report of City Surveyor for information, page 43.
And I think this is you again.
Chairman. John Galvin, who would usually head these things up, I think he's in Austria having a good time. So I'm happy to take any questions here. I think things that we've discussed in the past on this would be the flight path, which you won't see because it doesn't exist anymore. We have the ability to draw a flight path out of the system, but corporately we don't use the flight path at all anymore because it was too confusing. But I think the rest of the points encompassed in this report are self-explanatory, but happy to take any questions.
In call over, just one, this is slightly complicated question. One of the things that worries me in that on the news site at the markets as to who will actually be running the markets on behalf of either the developer or the site. And I obviously we have a responsibility for the management of the markets until they're in a new place. But what we don't want is to have a beautiful shiny building and nobody to manage it. I just think that's something that we need to think about.
Chairman, I totally agree with what you said. That's absolutely of the highest importance. No fault.
I wonder, Chairman, if we get an update on under the building maintenance management about the roof collapse, which was 5 years ago, which is still bodged, and whether there's because the timeline's come in and it's disappeared now, of who's actually going to be repairing.
No, it's that.
Concrete structure.
Isn't it that?
I couldn't see it in the Chairman, so if you can find it.
I know I raised a call over side. It's 58. It's the building maintenance management. Well, I raised it under that part.
Particular roof structure repair, which has been in line and been in previous reports.
But also, I wouldn't necessarily have it as amber anyway. Ben, you gave me a very good reply yesterday at call over.
So the works are planned. So Neil in City Surveyors is carrying out the surveys as we speak. This is appertaining to the gutter work and the purlins. That is a newly created project with a newly created SRO, the SRO being me. So we will see traction with that now going forward because it will be reported through Cora and there will be better governance and the pace of that going forward. Money was put aside for the inspection and the surveys. So that, as far as I'm aware, is planned, but I'm happy to bring an update to the next meeting.
Can I ask, should there be delays on the new Royal Albert Dock venue, how many more years do you think Smithfield and Bignsgate have in them? I realise there's lots of patchwork to be done, but realistically, how long could they be with us?
Ultimately, we would be able to maintain the market forevermore, but it's the cost. So we need to balance the works being done against the cost and the return on investment. I think that there's nothing within the market that would scare us for the next 20 years of operation. But as I said, that comes at a cost.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to comment on what the director just says. What we're just going to bring up, and I think it's best before we go into the private parts. The corporation, and I'm not digging no one out, by the way, on this. I'm just suggesting. Corporation have employed 2 people that's going to be in charge in the move to the new location. Would it not be a good idea at this stage, because from now going forward, it's imperative we have these meetings, perhaps even more meetings. Would it not be a good idea to have those 2 people, those newly appointed people, on the markets board?
Or attend our meetings?
Yes.
Well, I would have thought that was eminently sensible, but well, why don't we? I will take that away as an action for me and the deputy chairman. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask a similar question when we get into the confidential paper. So I'm very pleased you've raised it here in the public part, but to be continued. But I will take that as a personal action to ask the question. And it goes back to the point about running the markets as well. But that it all interlinks. It's vital.
It's board and running the markets, obviously, and the 2 new appointments need to know because they're strangers, if want for a better word. They're strangers and they don't know what goes on in the Markets Board, and they've got high profile positions now going forward. And it's imperative that they attend.
And we can be quite helpful.
Absolutely, no, absolutely.
Well, I think take out the quite, we can be very helpful. So, well, that's very, very helpful. Anything else on this?
And thank you. Turning to item 8, questions on matters related to the work of the board. What's in public? Item 9, any other business to consider urgent at this point?
Actually, I'm really sorry. I have got a question which I asked at all over about owner-operated vehicles in the markets. I'm just fixated by how many. So with the road closures and the knock-on effect, how many vehicles are from fleets and how many are individuals? I know we don't have the information, but when we are having road closures, getting the information to some of the people delivering meat to Smithfield or fish to Billings, well, Billingsgate is not entirely relevant because the road closures are all at Smithfield, but it's our ability to tell people in advance that parts of the place are closed at certain times, and it just makes it easier for you as merchants and for people operating into the markets. And I just think it's being on the front foot and saying, we never know when they're going to close Gresham Street, or we get confused about what's happening in Aldermanbury. And if we do have the ability to, maybe through the Tenants Association, to tell people in advance that roads are being closed, as I think it looks quite good practice to warn people. Just thought. But I, Paul, do you have a view on that or not? They just find their way in.
We find it much easier at Spitalfields and Billingsgate because we have a barrier system in one and ANPR in the other. With the open nature of Smithfield, it'd be very difficult to collate a database of users, vehicles that frequent the site. Our only option then is signage, posters, potential for, I don't know, WhatsApp messages or alerts or something on the SMTA website, that sort of thing. I'm sure there's better comms that could go out there.
Okay, well, I'll just leave it as a thought, just for something.
Happy to look at it.
Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. Turning to item 10, are members now content to exclude the public? Thank you. Please bear with me.